ho, ho! Merry Bookmas! This is On the Same Page, and I'm Bryna Butler here today with Casey Bond, as always. Hey, Casey, how are you doing?
I am fabulous.
Wonderful. And the holidays are quickly approaching.
Very quickly.
Yeah, everybody's in that mode where
Yes.
they're looking for books to fill up their holiday Kindles that they find under the tree and such, right?
And we can help you with that.
We certainly can.
We're
We
good
certainly
little
can.
elves.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So today we have an extra surprise in store. Casey and I actually went through and picked our top 5 books of the year and our top series of the year. And you'll get to see that at the end of the show.
I'm so excited.
Oh, gosh, I am too. So many great books this year.
Seriously.
So many great books. We're going to start off the day. I think you have the first book of the day, right, Casey? What did you read this month?
The first book I want to talk about is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black.
Okay, that's that series, right?
Yes.
That series. Okay.
That series, that cover is everything. Isn't it cool?
I don't know. I don't like snakes.
I do.
They're too scary.
I don't want
Ugh.
to touch one,
Ooh.
but I like the ominous cover vibe
Yes.
it's got going on, and it's just neat. So, and it goes really well with the storyline. So, you all know that I love this story. It starts with the Cruel Prince, where we meet Jude, a human living in a fairy's world, and she was literally ripped from her home when her mother's ex-husband, who's a fairy, comes to take his children back, and he kills the mother and her father and takes the children into fairyland.
Ooh.
And so she's literally torn from her home and has to learn how to survive in a world that's very much unforgiving for humans. And so she becomes sort of ruthless and clever and what she needs to be to survive.
We talked about that book, and it was such an exciting book. So I can't wait to hear about this next installment a little bit.
So at the end of The Wicked King, which is the second book in the series, there's a betrayal that takes place, or so Jude thinks. And so it literally picks up where The Wicked King left off, and Queen of Nothing starts with a literal bang. I love Holly Black.
She's very good at that.
She's very good at that. She just goes right into the action. There's no dragging points whatsoever in this book, and it follows Jude as she basically reclaims her crown and her throne and kicks some major booty on the way. I love a strong heroine. Jude is definitely that for me. Cardan is the Cruel Prince and the Wicked King. They're named for him. But through the book, you see that Holly Black is actually one of the most clever writers I've ever read, and I love her books for this reason. You see that she's left these little golden nuggets through the books, and nothing is really as it seems, and she just unravels that little package perfectly, and I just cannot say enough nice things about it. Holly Black is one of my very favorite authors, so pretty much if she writes it, I'm going to read it. She's got a new book out as well that goes along with Maleficent. It's called The Heart of the Moors. Which is very exciting.
I'll have to look that one up.
So she wrote it for Disney.
Okay.
So if you are into Maleficent, if you are into fairies at all, I highly suggest Holly Black. And I've read other things that she's written, like The Coldest Girl in Cold Town.
Yes.
Such a good book. That's vampires. But The Darkest Part of the Forest is fairy. She's just very good at what she does, and I love how she paints a world so simply but beautifully and vividly. And so I just love these books.
Nice, great.
Obviously.
One of the books I read this time was Bring Me Their Hearts by Sarah Wolf, and I think we have a graphic for the screen. I actually listened to this in audiobook form, and the cover for the audiobook does slightly differ. It is still a girl in a red dress, but it's slightly different than this. This one is the one on the print and ebook edition.
I like it.
So beautiful.
I'm not sure what the audiobook looks like, but that cover is really neat.
I like this one a little bit better than the audiobook cover, but gorgeous artwork on the cover, and it follows Zara, who is a heartless. So in this world, a heartless is someone that's kind of a slave to a witch. And there is a human faction and a witch faction, and they've lived in peace for several years, but there's a war brewing between the two. And so Zara, she was taken, made a heartless. Essentially, they the witch pulled out her heart, and she now craves human blood, and she's bound to the witch to do her will. Now, she got bound to a very nice witch that doesn't really force her to do anything, called Night Singer. But Night Singer is part of the movement that wants to be preemptive in the attack against the humans in order to negate the coming war. So the witches decide to send Zara in, who's a very beautiful young lady, send her into the castle where the prince is looking for a new princess, and to compete for his attentions in order to steal his heart.
Wow.
So that they can control the prince. So it's a very cool concept. They come to Zara, and like I said, her witch doesn't force her to do anything, but they instead tell her that if they take the prince's, she is successful in getting the prince's heart, that they will not only free her as a heartless, but they'll free the other heartless with her. So
Incentive.
that's how desperate. Yeah, she has definite incentive, but she gets into the castle and, of course, develops some feelings for the prince. But the way this heartless thing works, there's kind of a hunger inside that talks to her all through the book and wants his heart. And so it's very, very cool story. I don't want to get too much more. I want to stay away from
it. That sounds really neat.
It's really cool too in that the detail that this female character, it's very high fantasy. And they all speak, pretty much proper across the book, except for Zara. And Zara speaks like an ordinary teenager in this day and age. And I just love that little detail. Makes her very personable. One of the things, the feelings between her and the prince kind of developed because she's the only one that challenges him. Everybody else are yes people to him. And she comes into court, and one of the very first things they do is tell them to say what the prince is worth, kind of a trick question. And she says he's worth 1 potato. And they pretty much are getting ready to take off her head for saying such a thing. And then she explains that 1 potato to a family in the kingdom feeds them for a whole winter, and it's priceless.
Right.
And so she's very clever and a great lead character of the book. But she has this flaw and this hunger that's inside her.
I love that. That sounds awesome.
Cliffhanger. Major cliffhanger. This book does not tie up neatly in a bow. Major cliffhanger at the very end, leaving pretty much nothing resolved. So be wary of that. If you don't like cliffhangers, you might want to. This one has a pretty strong one.
And I'm going to just say this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I love cliffhangers.
Yeah, I do too.
I love them. Everybody says they don't love them, but
now,
if a book makes you want to keep going, that's a good thing.
The good thing about this is that the second book is already available.
Oh,
so
nice.
If you hit that cliffhanger and can't take it, the second book's already there that you can pick up.
What's the second book?
I didn't jot down the name of that. I'm sorry.
It's all Googleable.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure we post that to Facebook. The name of that second book. But it just recently came out. Bring Me Their Hearts has been out for a little while.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I might have to read that one. That sounds
pretty
great.
cool. Yeah.
The next one I want to talk about is Feather by Olivia Wildenstein. And I'm going to say this, I love angel books, but this angel book is on a whole different level for me. I've read Lauren Kate's Fallen series. I've read Hush Hush. I've read all sorts of things. And I loved this story because it was just pieced together beautifully. The way Olivia spins a story is very seamless, very beautiful, even when certain things are kind of unseemly. This book is basically Romeo and Juliet with angels. I mean, it's a neat retelling. It's very unique. The world is basically split into humans and angel factions, and the angels. The angel girls are all excited because one of the main angels, Gabriel, wants to come down and get a wife. So in order to be eligible, you have to have all of your feathers, and you earn feathers by redeeming souls and helping them find their way.
Huh, that's a neat.
Yes, so she's short a lot of feathers. Her name's Lee, and she's short, and she really wants to apply to be this archangel's wife. And so
You have to apply to be a
Yeah,
wife?
you have to have all your feathers or you don't qualify.
Oh, okay.
So she needs her feathers, and she's like 29 feathers short or something. So she actually takes on a sinner who's got like a triple score, who's like the worst available. But he's not what he seems, and he's sort of almost like a Robin Hoodish character. So he's doing bad things, but for good reasons. So he's very complicated.
That gray area.
Yes, and that is the perfect way to describe this book. It's like there's this huge gray area in what's right and what's wrong, and what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do, but also just where that line blurs, and she just does it beautifully. And there's a slow burn romance here. What Lee thinks she wants isn't what she wants at all. She doesn't want, to be led around by an archangel. She wants somebody who sees her as an equal. And it's just a beautiful story that unfolds. Olivia asked me to read an advanced copy of this, and I gave her a quote, and this is what I wrote for her, because it is just, I can't sum it up any better. It's decadent and romantic in every way. Feather exquisitely blurs the line between good and evil. And it's just such a pretty romance. It's such a beautifully told story. I can't say enough about it. It will have more books. I can't remember what the second one's called, but I believe it's up for pre-order.
All right.
But Feather releases, I believe it's later this month or early next month, and it's not out yet, but it is amazing, and I highly suggest that if you like romances and if you like the angel center aspect, that you check it out.
Nice. Yep. Oh, yeah, that one sounds perfect.
and Romeo and Juliet vibes, definitely.
In Christmas season with angels and maybe a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Another book that I read, and this one we didn't meet to have the show in November because of some things going on, but this one I read in October called Never Kiss the Dead by
I love
Kelly
that
Martin.
title.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And I love Kelly's work. We've actually talked about some of her other books here before. But this one follows a girl named Mercy, and Mercy's a resident in Southern Psychiatric Hospital. It's been 2 years since she was in a car crash that killed her parents, and they admitted her to the psychiatric hospital because what she claimed to have seen caused the accident. She thinks a demon caused the accident. And so we're here 2 years later, and a handsome male nurse comes into her room and quickly then turns into a demon and attacks her.
Oh my goodness.
So she then escapes and comes into the arms of an angel named Ramsey, and she and Ramsey's forced to be her guardian angel. In this world, there's a war going on between angels and demons, and angels are a little bit scarce, and so every guardian angel has multiple charges, and he is told that she's his only charge for now, and not really why. And so he's a little disgruntled that he's not out there fighting, that he has to be her guardian, and doesn't really understand why, but she's got a special gift that you learn about in the book, and it can really turn the tide for the war.
Wow,
so,
that's exciting.
It's really cool, action-packed from start to finish. You don't know why they want her for much of the book. You don't even know if it's real, or since she's in the psychiatric hospital, is she making it all up?
Right.
Because it's so, and I'm still not completely sure if it was all real by the end, but you think you know what's going on.
Right.
So she's very good at sultry male characters, and she does a great job of that in this one too. A little bit of horror in it, and a great action book. And that's Never Kiss the Dead by Kelly Martin. And I also want to mention, I know that you and I talked about Kelly Martin's book Trinity Row a few months ago, and I wanted to mention we really salivated over the black sprayed edge editions.
I love it.
Well, Monster Ivy Publishing, the publisher of this book, is now offering some of those black sprayed edges editions. So I wanted to mention that. Reach out to Monster Ivy Publishing if you want to get a copy of that for the holidays.
It's such a good book. I'm just going to say this, I don't think anybody writes a Southern Gothic like Kelly Martin. The girl has got talent.
She's a big Supernatural fan and a Lucifer fan of those TV shows, and you can see some of that in her writing style. So if you like those shows, you're going to love Kelly Martin.
Definitely. definitely. Highly recommended.
This one had, the new one, that Never Kissed the Dead, I think it had a strong influence by the Lucifer TV show.
Ooh.
I saw a lot of inspiration kind of cross
That's
there.
good. That's
So-
good. I see that. It almost gave me, like with your description, like a Constantine vibe. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Kinda? I like
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
awesome. Okay, well, the next book I wanted to talk about is The Girl Who Cried Werewolf. And this is
I love that title.
I do too. And I love the cover. I love her shirt. It says "Bite Me." It's got vampire
Oh my
fangs.
goodness.
It's cute. And this book, the cover's perfect because this book is sassy.
Well, it's written by Heather Hildebrand
And Bam Shepherd. And
It's
those
not gonna
girls
be
are
anything
hilarious
less.
in person. If you've never met them, they're amazing. Go see them at an event. They just, I can't stop laughing if I'm in their presence. It's so funny. And their senses of humor come through this book just perfectly. The book follows Romy, who's she's in college, and she is a book blogger, like almost like a YouTuber, and she tells her followers that she has evidence that werewolves exist, and she doesn't produce the actual evidence because said werewolf takes her phone. So then you kind of get raked over the coals if you make these allegations online and then you don't show any proof. And then, but there's basically two packs that are kind of going against each other, two werewolves packs, and one of them is attacking girls on campus. And so there's this mystery involved, and this snarky girl, Romy, is just hilarious. There's great humor, but it's also got the werewolfy, creepy vibe to it, and it's set on a college campus, so it's fun. And yeah. I just loved it. It made me laugh out loud. I
am definitely picking that one up.
It was so much fun. Like, even if you just read the description is hilarious. And it's something that if you just want a fun and just good book to sit down and curl up with, it's great. It was thoroughly entertaining for me.
Yeah, I am definitely picking that one up.
Yeah.
You had me at Heather and Bam.
I know, right?
Yeah. One of the ones I pulled out was Close to the Bone, which is a Widow's Island novella by Kendra Elliott. This is a series of novellas by Kendra, and I believe another author is doing some of the ones in the series. But this is that first book in the series. It follows Kate Wilde, who's an FBI agent. And Kate was recently shot on duty and is on medical leave and went back to her home on Widow's Island. And there's been some bones found on the island. And it looks like bones of a young woman. And so because of the current weather, the ferry is not running. And so the FBI reaches out, knowing she's on leave there on the island, to ask her to investigate. And so Kate, and it happens that Kate's best friend, Tessa, is the sheriff's deputy on the island. And so Kate and Tessa kind of get back together, and they were friends in high school, and their third in their trio in high school went missing when they were teenagers. So they have in their mind that this could be her. And there's also another missing young woman that's the daughter of a recluse author on a neighboring island. And it could be her. And so it is an adult mystery, very well written, keeps a really good pace. The island is Widow's Island, and it has some kind of minor magical abilities. If you say the islanders say that the island chooses who it allows to live on the island.
Wow. And
so they found Kate's mother moved away, and they said that's the Magical Properties Island. The island didn't want her there, so it puts that into your soul that you need to leave if it doesn't want to accept you. And it has some healing properties, they think, and it's called Widow's Island because there aren't any old men on the island.
I like the cover. The cover was, it's kind of
beautiful.
gray and ominous, but it's got the vibrant pops of orange and with the boat and the font, and it's just really neat looking.
Beautiful, yeah. Islands are set in the Pacific Northwest. That plays into that a lot too. Just a really good mystery if you want to curl up with a short mystery.
That's awesome. So I think we're going to surprise you with our top fives of.
Well, I have.
Oh, do you have one more?
I have one more book, Casey.
I'm jumping the gun.
I don't know if you're going to recognize this book. But the other book that I have to talk about today is When Wishes Bleed by Casey L. Bond.
I've seen it somewhere, yes.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
So that followed. I feel like weird telling you about your own book, but this book was amazing, and our viewers wouldn't be missing out if they didn't hear about it. But it follows Sable, and Sable is the daughter of Fate, an outcast in Sector 13. In a fantasy kingdom called Nautilus. And Nautilus is so cool. I don't know how this woman thinks of these things, but the kingdom is kind of a spiral like a Nautilus shell.
Yep.
And so Sector 1 is in the middle, and that's where the castle is and the king. And then each sector kind of wraps around and comes out until Sector 13, which is the biggest sector, and that's the witches sector, where all the witches reside in the kingdom. So Sable is a witch and daughter of Fate. The witches are in their own houses, air, earth, and all the elements. But she's kind of been outcast as this daughter of Fate and doesn't really have her own house at the start of the book. But as her responsibilities as a daughter of Fate is that Fate guides her to bring criminals to justice. And she does that by hanging them rather gruesomely in the town gallows. So
yes.
She is one tough character,
yes,
Sable is, and she's very clever, extremely so. I would say if she wasn't so tough and had this darkness, I'd say she'd be a good role model otherwise. But that darkness is definitely there and a great character flaw for her. So the story opens on the equinox when the people of other sectors are allowed to visit the gallows, Sector 13, and she reads the fortune of a handsome young man. And I keep looking my notes, not because I forget, because I wrote down distinctly what I needed to say to keep away from spoilers.
Yeah.
Because I keep thinking, I say this, and like, no, wait, that'll lead them into the,
Yeah.
So a lot of twists and turns, very unpredictable. But she reads the fortune of a handsome young man that she later learns is the prince. She learns this the next day when she receives an invitation to come to the castle to be one of his prospects for his new queen. So to be his wife and to eventually become queen, I should say. So great story, really in the details, like the shape of Nautilus, the witches' traditions. They don't marry, they hand fast, which is kind of like marriage, but it only lasts for 1 year, and then they hand fast with maybe someone else, which was a kind of a weird kind of turn. Really cool how you got an insight. I assume that you did some research on fortune telling, because they talk about the different methods of fortune telling and her preference for wishbones. And so it's really cool kind of detail there, uniqueness of the sectors, even down to the other representatives to become the prince's wife. The people from the sectors very much incorporate the whole tone of that sector. And so it was really, really well done. And girl, I'm not going to say too much about this because I don't want to ruin anything, but the glass spiders was genius.
Thank you.
So look for that too. So that's When Wishes Bleed by Casey Bond.
Yay. Now you ready for our
Yes,
top five?
Let's get to it. We've got 5 minutes left, I'm told. So
Okay, am I first?
let's pop the first one
I'm
up there.
first. Okay, so here's the first graphic. These are my top 5 books of 2019. Some of them are part of a series, some of them are not, but these are the top 5 that I really like. Number 5 is Feather. I just love that book, Olivia. I'm just telling you that now. Number 4, The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. Major Viking vibes, and she can weave a story. She is a storyteller. If anybody just is a storyteller, it's Amy Harmon. Number 3, Audrey Gray's Oath Taker. I love fantasy, and I love the dark and light contrast of this book. It is my jam. I've read both the 2 books that are out. Highly recommend them. I cannot wait for the 3rd. The second is Rage by Cora Carmack. Y'all know we love these books. I loved Rage. Roar is the first book. Rage is the second. Totally into it. My top book of the year is The Girl the Sea Gave Back. I loved Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young, and this is sort of a follow-up that takes place a few years later, but it's from a very different perspective. and I just loved it. So
Nice.
those are my top 5s. What
Well,
are your top 5s?
Here are my top 5s, if we can get those up on the screen. Number 1 was The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. That's a retelling of The Prince and the Pauper set at Comic-Con, or a Comic-Con-like conference. Number 2 was The Angel Trials by Michelle Maddow. Wonderful series in a whole universe of books. Very addictive storytelling. Number 3 was Cast by Misty Preventure. I love this book just for the gorgeousness of the storytelling in this book. Number 4 was Wake the Dead, and Octavia, from the Journals of Octavia Hollows, by Stacy Rourke. When your pig's a sidekick, you got to be in the top 5. I'm just saying.
An undead pig.
Undead pig to boot. Just an amazing heroine for fantasy series, and I really, these books are so much fun. I just dive through them. And number 5, Trinity Row by Kelly Martin, because I finally got the Black Edged edition.
Yes.
Horror. It's really, I love that book as well.
That is a beautiful top 5, Bryna. And now, do you want to know my favorite series of the year?
I do.
I'm thinking you might be able to guess this. I don't know. You want to put the graphic up for us?
What one did you gush about?
The Folk of the Air by Holly Black. Those are my favorite books. So they might be my favorite of all time at this point. So,
nice.
So yay, Holly, you did an amazing job, and I love it so much.
Wonderful. Well, you might recognize my top series as well, Casey. Let's take a look. My top series for the year was the High Stakes Saga, which I devoured as soon as Casey Bond, author, got them out. Just a high action series with a heroine that I absolutely fell in love with.
Yay.
Twists and turns on almost every page. Most unpredictable series I've ever read, and I enjoyed this series so much, Casey.
Thank you.
I gotta tell you. So I think that is our show for today. Well, thank you for joining us
Merry
for
Christmas.
our December episode, and Happy New Year.
See you in 2020.